right, a very good evening to you and welcome to this edition of Safe TV2 Presents. We are live in Georgetown, Guyana and around the world. We want to welcome you. It's a good evening. It's a happy Sabbath Eve. And tonight we have just seen Pastor Rogers' program, the program that brings you the biblical perspective. We want to thank Pastor Rogers and his, I call it his sidekick, so to speak, the man next to him, the great elder from Ephesus, doing his thing alongside Pastor Rogers. So now we have Safe TV2 Presents, and tonight we have a guest in our studio. We are live, so to speak. We are live right now. And I have a very important doctor in the house tonight, and he has a message that is very serious, health-wise, for all of you out there in the viewing public. We also want to remind you of the 130th anniversary of Adventism in Guyana, 1887 to 2017, and the big plans for it. We have an ad to show you of what the whole program is all about. Take a look. The Seventh Adventist Church celebrates 130 years since it was organized in Guyana from March 19th to 25th at the National Exhibition Center, Sophia. Sunday, March 19th is the Grand Parade and motorcade leaving the Jubilee Park at 3 p.m. and heading to the Exhibition Center for the launch of the Adventist Village, which opens from Sunday through Friday from 3 to 10 p.m. daily. See our health food services on display with free medical checks, free dental care, and free medication. Check out our health food fair, craft and souvenir items. Get free books and giveaway prizes from the Adventist Book Center. Explore the kids' fun park with trampoline and bouncy castle. Enjoy nightly concerts, drama, and revival services with dynamic presentation from Dr. James Jansen from the USA. Then end the week with a massive consecration service on Friday 6:30 p.m. and a National Anniversary Convention on Saturday at 9 a.m. So bring out the entire family. It's 1 week of activities, March 19th to 25th at the National Exhibition Center, Adventist, celebrating 130 years. That's right, the Adventist Church, 130 years of Adventism. I wasn't even born yet. I wasn't even in thought, nothing. Most of you the same thing. But the Adventist Church in Guyana has a great history, and we're inviting the public to be a part of our 130th anniversary. This may be the last time you're seeing us at 130. We know, who knows? Christ might come and that's it. But this will be the last time in your lifetime you're going to be able to see an Adventism at 130. We don't know, but we're inviting the entire country to be a part of Adventism at 130 at the Exhibition Center, the Sophia. It's going to be like a Guy Expo kind of thing, but it's Adventist Expo, if you want to call it that. Right? Adventist at 130 at the National the Sophia Exhibition Complex. Bring out the family. It's going to be there for 4 days, 19th to the 25th. So you can't miss it. It's going to be open all day up to 10 o'clock in the night. And the lecture series and the nightly presentation, you cannot afford to miss it. There's going to be a lot of stuff there, especially medical stuff that you can acquire and or buy at that event. So come out, be a part of it. Tell your friends and family. The Central Seventh-day Adventist Church, known before as the Georgetown SDA, the first SDA church in Guyana, will be having its rededication service Sunday, March 19th at 10 a.m. at the church. So all students who attended the SDA Primary School and the Georgetown Adventist Academy, you're asked to attend the service. Wow. Was your mom part of it? I don't think so. This is part of the 130th anniversary of Adventism. So if you were a past student of the Adventist Academy, you need to be at that consecration service. That is at the Central SDA Church, the first church that was organized in Guyana, 130 years. Could you imagine that? My gosh. Now, before we get into our program proper, I'm going to whet your appetite to a song, Psalms 119, I think it is. It's going to be done by a group called well, I can say a young lady, but she was, a matter of fact, I don't know if many of you have remembered a group called the Johnson Sisters. Um, the Johnson Sisters, they sang so many songs. I want to thank you, Lord, from the bottom of my heart. We are one big happy family. All those songs that were sung a couple of years ago. Well, they have now young women, and they have recently produced a song that I want to introduce to you tonight. It's based on Psalms, local Psalms, and it's going to be played right now. Take a look.
He doesn't have faith. Put your trust in him, for he will help you. Put your trust in God, for he will stand. Put your faith in him, for he's your shield, the Lord your shelter in the time of the storm. He is your shelter in the time of the storm. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right, but they shall not come nigh thee, for the Lord Almighty will cover thee. No, 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 they shall not come nigh thee, for the Lord Almighty will cover thee under his wings of love, under his wings of love. Put your trust in him, for he will help you. Put your trust in God, for he will stand. Put your faith in him, for he's your shield, the Lord your shelter in the time of the storm. He's your shelter in the time of the storm. If you make the Lord, which is thy refuge, thy dwelling place, no evil, no harm shall befall thee. He will give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest ye dash thy foot against a stone. He will be with you in trouble. When you call on him, he'll answer. If you just put your trust in him, for he will help you. Put your trust in God, for he will stand. Put your faith in him, for he's your shield, the Lord your shelter in the time of the storm. He is your shelter in the time of the storm. Say hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. The Lord your shelter in the time of the storm. The Lord your shelter in the time of the storm. Shelter in the time of the storm. Our God, your shelter in the time of the storm. God, your shelter in the time. He's your Lord, your shelter in the time of the storm. You don't have to look time of the storm.
Wow, I have never heard the Psalms 91 described in that way. That was powerful. That was powerful. My gosh. Ooh. Now, tonight in the studio we have with us Dr. Jermaine Carter. He's a naturopath, and he is here for the first time. As a matter of fact, I think it is his first television debut here in Guyana. Dr. Carter, welcome to Channel 2. It is a pleasure having you here with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm also privileged to be here also and to have a chance to be debuting on your program here. So
man.
that's a blessing too.
I'm getting a first day tonight. But we're talking tonight about a serious issue, Dr. Carter, diabetes. Before you get into the topic proper, I want to quote a section here from the West Indies Medical Journal. It says here that the global burden of diabetes study has projected that there will be a 122% increase in the number of people with diabetes worldwide in 2025 compared to 1995. This translates to approximately 300 million people living with diabetes in 2025. The majority of these will be people living in developing countries where there is expected to be a 170% increase in the number of people living with diabetes from 84 million, hear the figure? From 84 million in 1995, here the other one, to 228 million in 2025. Now, this is a serious statistic.
Yeah, it really is. It puts the spotlight probably where it needs to be. But more than this, you know, you look at staggering statistics, and you wonder why. The question might be, why, if we know as much as we do today, why still would there be a forecast of such a statistic worldwide? And that's, in a sense, pandemic views. And the other thing about that statistic, those are probably tested cases of diabetes. There may be a number of people that are, you know, just in society that really not even sure whether or not they have diabetes, might be pre-diabetic or something like this, and they just have never gotten tested, so they wouldn't know. So that statistic probably would be even higher than the number that is given right there, the 300 and somewhat million.
Now, Dominique, I think we have a lower third with a very important, way that Dr. Carter expresses the term diabetes. There it is, diabetes, sweet tooth,
Bitter truth.
bitter truth. Now, man, I tell you. But is it that persons are not heeding the call to take their health in check? Or is it that they are just living it life one day at a time without realizing the complication and the danger of diabetes?
Well, let me say this. The name itself seems a misnomer. What is prevalent today in the education for diabetic seems to be something that should be otherwise. In other words, then, when we listen, we hear sweet tooth. People think of sugars. What we need right now with diabetic research, in a sense, is a paradigm shift. We need to shift the way of thinking from just sugars, per se, as being a culprit, maybe to another culprit, which we're going to look at in a moment. We want to see really what are the real factors that are the risk factors involved in becoming diabetic. And I think if we look at those and we evaluate the scientific research today, you'll find that the majority of what is being said in terms of diabetes might be quite a little bit misleading, to say the least.
So what are the risk factors?
Well, when we talk about diabetes, maybe the first thing that should come to mind is lifestyle. Not necessarily whether a person eats sugar or too much sugar, but maybe they should focus on the overall lifestyle of that person. And when we talk about lifestyle, we need to focus on several principles of lifestyle. Whether that person has good nutrition, whether they get enough exercise, whether they drink enough water. And it's as simple as that sounds. The intake of water is just, in a sense, a matter of fact. If you drank enough water, the fact is you would dilute, in a sense, and I'm oversimplifying here, but you would dilute the concentration of blood sugar. So immediately a person would be going from hyperglycemic to a lower blood sugar just by enough adequate water. So there's some simple things here that can play a major role, and yet nonetheless I think even though people know about it, they're not taking the steps necessary to empower themselves to really overcome diabetes and to keep it intact.
Now, I know that for those of you who may be listening, we may have been hearing this for, umpteen times, but remind our audience out there the types of diabetes and, their characteristics, so to speak.
Okay, so
Like type 1, whatever, type 2, type 3.
the major forms of diabetes, of course, are type 1 diabetes, mellitus, type 2 diabetes. There's also what is called gestational diabetes, maybe a less known diabetes. There's bronze diabetes. But before, we used to have something called juvenile onset diabetes mellitus, but we can't really use that term any longer.
Why?
And the reason is because what we're having is more of juvenile or young children with not juvenile onset, but just right out type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
So we've had to actually almost take out that name as a name that shows a term for diabetes. So right now we just look particularly at type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes. Gestational diabetes is also something that affects pregnant women during their term of pregnancy, and often that will go away after the pregnancy is come to birth.
No, I remember when we had the crusade at the back road here, you showed some really serious photographs of persons who would have, had diabetes and started to eat their feet out and all those kind of stuff, parts of their body. That is when it's gone to the danger stage, isn't it? So,
well, the ravages of diabetes are very well known. The organ systems that are affected, everyone knows that a diabetic immediately has about a 50% more risk for a heart attack. And I'm saying that because what diabetics will often have are these small myocardial infarctions, these small heart attacks. And as they get them, they progress. Of course, they sometimes will be oblivious to the fact that actually was a heart attack. They'll go through it as though something, it's very little or minute to be bothered with. But evidently what will happen is that will progress. The trouble with the diabetic, the doctor will often say, check your feet. The longest nerves in the body will run into the feet and into the hands, these peripheral nerves. And diabetes, as the blood sugar rises, the diabetic will begin to damage those neurons, and immediately they'll get what are called neuropathies. And there is a number of them here that we can talk about. But the one that really affects them the most, when they get a neuropathy that actually affects the feet, often enough the diabetic will get stuck by a nail, or they'll get a little scar, or they'll...
And that's
the immediate starting point. When that happens, because that tissue is not innervated as it should, and because in many cases the diabetic circulation is very poor, what will happen is that they'll get an ulcer. And as the thing progresses, it will begin to erode at the tissues, especially in the skin, and then it'll go even deeper. And the major problem with that is that it can affect the bones. A person will get what is called osteomyelitis, which is a bone infection and very difficult to treat. We're talking here about several antibiotics, and you can try as you may, But what evidently happens is that they will have to go in there and take off, amputate a piece of that particular limb. And then, of course, this is a vicious cycle, because whenever we amputate anything in the diabetic, the immune system for the diabetic is so low because of the sugar level. The phagocytosis is very slow. We have white blood cells that will not really do their work. And what happens is that the diabetic will get infected again and again. And what I showed before was the fact that one of the most remarkable things in healing the diabetic ulcer that has gone even to gangrene in several cases, by the way, is very ironic, it's sugar. You know, you laugh at that, but,
Yes.
but we showed that several times, that the thing that really heals diabetic ulcers is sugar.
The same thing that causes the diarrhea.
All right, now I get us slipping over there. All right, you said the same thing that caused it. The irony of diabetes is, and I think Dr. James Anderson at the University of Kentucky did a study on this here, and you can look this up. If you're a doctor and you have PubMed or you're on the internet, you can look this up. Dr. James Anderson at the University of Kentucky did a study where he took participants that were fed the same diet, and with the exception of a group that was actually fed sugar. And they ran them a course of 3 to 6 months. And they found that the ones that were fed the high sugar diet didn't develop any symptoms whatsoever of diabetes. They took the group, and under the same controls, they ran a group that were fed a high fat diet. And when they looked at the results, they had an overwhelming amount of the participants that showed not only pre-diabetes but full-blown diabetes. And maybe the misnomer here is when we say sweet tooth, bitter truth, the concept maybe not only to be looking at a sugar, what is just tasty or sweet, but what is really good, what we love a lot, what has a lot of fat in it, and what really causes us to get what is called insulin resistance. Because at the real onset of diabetes, insulin resistance is what should be focused on.
Now, I know that many persons who are looking right now might say, my gosh, started to check themselves and see if they're diabetes or obese or what have you.
Yeah.
But I think, most of the person might want to know is diabetes reversible? Could it be reversible? Is that a possibility?
Well, that's an excellent question. To know whether or not a disease or a particular trouble like diabetes, let's say, is reversible, first what we have to look at is the mechanism. How really do we get diabetes? And over the years, we have posited several different concepts of diabetes and how we get diabetes. And the first of it is a simple one, as we talked about before. People talked about sugar and carbohydrates. And a lot of people are worrying about their carbohydrate intake and how it affects them. But we have seen that actually the hormone insulin is the real trouble in a diabetic, because diabetes is not so much a problem with sugar as it is a problem with the hormone insulin. And insulin is not a digestive enzyme. It's a hormone.
What about history? How to do with history either?
Well, the thing about it is, for years, doctors have often said, well, look, we have a problem with metabolizing sugar. So sugar is a problem. But if you understand the mechanism of a cell and the structure of it, you'll see that a cell has a number of receptors on it. And those receptor sites, they open up as insulin goes into them. When insulin goes into that cell and the receptor site opens, then glucose, in a sense, piggybacks on insulin. So insulin is like a key to the cell door. When it goes in, it opens, glucose can then ride in and become part of that cell. Glucose is the particular fuel for every cell in the human body.
Oh, look at that.
So that's the mechanism in terms of what we're looking at. Now, when you know the mechanism, then when you take a look at if diabetes can be reversed, or you ask such a question, then the only question would be really, if a person becomes insulin resistant, that means that the cells refuse the insulin that's in the body, whether or not a cell that is insulin resistant can actually be reversed to where the insulin gets into that cell.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think from the data that we have today, we know that for a fact, you can actually have a person that is insulin resistant and then reverse that particular problem so that the cells themselves begin to take insulin. And I want to say this, 95% of all diabetics, 95% of all diabetics have type 2 diabetes. We're talking about a 5% that have type 1 diabetes that are insulin dependent. The research today suggests very clearly that what we're having are people that are becoming insulin dependent, and it's not a condition of sugars. In fact, insulin works better in an environment where there is a lot of sugar.
Wow. Based on the research that you
That's correct. Where insulin has a problem, especially getting in the cell, is when a cell takes a globule of fat and it actually clogs up the entry path for insulin, and that cell is becoming or has become insulin resistant.
Wow, there you have it. Wow. That's a lot of
That's a mouthful.
mouthful there with a lot of medical termination and all of that.
We want to unpack that, probably.
Yeah, you know, you now break it down to the normal man on the street.
All right, the normal man on the street. For the normal man on the street is a simple concept. You have a cell that is clogged with fat deposits. The insulin that should get in and bring in sugar cannot get in. The person becomes insulin resistant. The cell says no
Can't come in.
to insulin. You cannot come in. And once insulin does not get in, sugar will not get into that cell neither. All of a sudden, the diabetic has two things that are problematic. Number one is he has a lot of insulin within the blood, one. And two, he has a lot of sugar within the blood. The blood sugars are elevated. If it goes above 180 milligrams, often he'll have a spillage of blood sugar into the urine. But many persons are pre-diabetic and diabetic way before they'll ever get a 180 or something elevated higher than 180 milligrams, and they'll find anything within the urine. So what we're talking about when we deal with diabetes, in a sense, is a fat problem rather than even a sugar problem. Now, we live in Guyana, and as I tell people, the majority of Guyanese, they like to fry their foods. They want to make sure that some oil residue is left on the lips.
Yes, and the mouth
And
looking really shiny and
yes,
so on.
you know that you've eaten well. But in a sense, right here is where we have the problems, because what we're having are severe fats that should probably never enter the body, that clog up those cells and cause a person to go to where they're insulin resistant. And whenever that happens, the next event to happen is pre-diabetic, or that person becomes full-blown diabetic. And it's been shown over and over again that you can reverse diabetes, something that's not talked about as much. There's a program for reversing diabetes, and we're going to try to get in as much of that in here as we can.
Now, Dr. Carter is going to be here as once a month to talk to us on different issues of health whenever he has time, because these doctors these days very, very busy. To get Dr. Carter here is not easy, but you can also find him. He's going to be at the 130th anniversary celebration.
That's correct.
At the Sophia Exhibition Complex, and you will meet him and he will talk with you and he will show him he has a lot of products that you could get yourself acquainted with and get help. That's the big thing. You're talking about reversing diabetes? That's the guy. That's the guy. And more than that, he Dr. Carter, and Dr. Haynes are actually partner, they're pals. These naturopath people, they're working in an environment of unity. So sometimes you hear Dr. Haynes talking about Dr. Carter, Dr. Carter talking about Dr. Haynes, they are on the same page. But you can find them there at the exhibition complex from the 19th of March to the 25th. Now, Doc, I know that you have you know, you have a lot of cases that have brought before you, um, where, you know, persons who would have come into your office seeking help in so many areas. Diabetes is one of them.
Yes.
We are on diabetes tonight. So, give us one of those success stories of where a person would have gone into your office fully blown diabetic, and came out weeks or days after reversed.
Absolutely. Only recently, we talk about the seminars that were held on the Mandela Avenue.
Yes.
And there was a gentleman there, I'm not going to mention his name, but he was 50, in his early 50s. And one of the problems that he came in, you know, men normally wouldn't come to a doctor. Men, something has to be falling off.
Yeah. You gotta be
As
a
a
real
general
danger
rule.
zone. to
Real
go-
danger
yeah.
zone. And one of the most dangerous zones for men with diabetes is impotence.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
Erectile dysfunction is one of the major problems with men and diabetes, and they can be very young, in their 30s. I've looked at men now, 38 years old, erectile dysfunction. I've seen at least one marriage end in divorce over erectile dysfunction, a man that was diabetic.
Wow.
And the gentleman came to us and he said, look, I've had diabetes for a long while. He said, I listened to you. You said you can reverse it. I said, we can. I said, we can treat it too. I said, which one would you like?
He must be surprised. He must be like a little Christmas tree.
Hey,
Yeah.
I said, look, we can actually look at diabetes and reverse diabetes if you're willing to follow what is necessary. He said, okay, I want the reverse diabetes pill that you have. I said, no problem. We'll pack it for you. Now, if we took him and he said, look, one of the problems I'm having, you know, the man sits down there, he's a little bit shy to tell you is that, you know, things are not working
Down there,
right
yeah.
down there. And, you know, it's a common complaint with men. As I told you before, because fats are the major culprit here, whenever fats will block the arteries that are going towards the genitalia, often the case, of course, will be that you have not enough of circulation in the area, and immediately you'll have erectile dysfunction.
Yep.
Also, the nerves become a problem as we talk about neuropathy, and that also will do it. Now, what happened with him, he got on our program. And within a matter of 1 month, 1 month, he came back to me, he said, look, I've been taking my blood sugars. He said they've been reading. Now, this man, by the way, has had times in his life when his blood sugars were way over 500.
Wow.
And that might seem remarkable, but we have a number of people that walk around on our streets right here in Guyana that have raging blood sugar levels, like what I'm talking about. He said, you know what? I've been checking those blood sugars. After on that program for that length of time, he said, you know, my blood sugars are reading 84. He said, I read an 84. I got an 89. It's been 87. I said, now, you know, if you walk into a doctor's office and you give him your blood sugar level and it reads 84, what is he going to say? Well, he's going to say, well, you don't have diabetes. Your blood sugars are normal. I said, well, and that's the test, right? Well, what we had him do also, another test that needs to be done, it's the HbA1c test. And this is a glycosylated test for, you know, you medical brains out there, but this is a glob of sugar that sticks on or gets glycosylated to the particular hemoglobin molecule within the blood cell, and it can tell your blood sugars not for a day of a fasting blood sugar, but for over the last 3 months, what's the range of that blood sugar.
Wow.
And when we looked at it, you could immediately see right away that the hemoglobin A1c is coming down. The blood sugars are reading absolutely normal. And you know what he said? He said, Doc, and things are
Back in order.
back in order. Now, you know he was ecstatic
Of course.
over that. And as I said before, men, this is one of the major complaints with men, and this is one of the things that will take a man to the doctor's office. So in terms of PD, penile dysfunction, erectile dysfunction, there's no question about it. You can reverse it. You can actually give back a man not only his life, but the quality of life is one of the things that diabetes really affects. especially in men.
Huh. Tell you what, we're going to wrap up this program in the next 10, 15 minutes. We're going to give you out there an opportunity to call Dr. Carter, ask him any question pertaining to the topic, diabetes or what have you, or anything else, and he will try to answer them and probably give you the solution if he can at this time. But if he can, you could always meet with him and talk with him. So we're going to open the lines, 218-4949. You can call that number, and we're going to get on to Dr. Carter, onto the show. You're going to ask questions, what have you. So, Doc, you're saying to us that diabetes is reversible.
That's correct.
It can change.
I'll tell you this, in a matter of 18 days, I've seen the ravages of diabetes for years now. From the United States to here, Guyana, I've seen it being reversed. I've seen people walk in with 400 and somewhat in terms of a blood sugar reading and come right down to below 90. And you know, if you look at diabetics, the ranges that they give on your blood work, you'll see that that thing is actually increasing as the years go by in a sense. That's because the general population is actually getting more, or what we would call pre-diabetic. So when you take a sample of the general population, you'll find that that glucose level is being elevated.
We got a caller. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, ma'am.
One question. If someone was diabetic and then they got kidney problem, kidney failure, can anything be done there?
Good question. That's a remarkable question. You know, one of the major impacts for diabetes is on the kidneys. And, you know, it's a really troubling thing here that we have in Guyana. We're actually having more cases of kidney disease. And immediately we can actually associate or show that there's a prevalence of diabetes. And when we look at that, one of the things that we'd like to focus on is how far, what kind of damage we're looking at in terms of kidneys. I will tell you this, one of the things that are really very difficult to deal with is kidney failure.
Yes, very serious thing, yeah.
What I do know is that if you really get on top of things, you can actually begin to have that kidneys kicking back. But this takes quite a bit of effort on the person's part.
Yeah.
One of the things that are coming up in the research today as we look at it is charcoal. Something that can really actually help the kidneys deal with some of the waste, the burden of waste within the body. There's a number of solutions to this, and I think that that caller would probably need to see us, and we'd be able to give you directions on what to do. And a person like this would need to follow things very, very implicitly. They need to be very careful with what they're doing. Yes, there's no question about that. If you're going to have any chance, especially with the kidneys or kidney failure, kidney disease, then you need to be very careful with what you're doing.
Dialysis, she says?
Anything can be done? 3 days per week dialysis.
3 days per week dialysis.
Yeah.
All right, I want to say that once the patient has gone to dialysis, then the kidneys are decently damaged. But like every other tissue within the human body, with the exception, as I understand, the only things that do not rejuvenate themselves as quick are brain cells. And we know today that even that neogenesis does occur within the brain. So we know that even neurons within the brain rejuvenate themselves. So there's no question whether or not the nephrons within the kidneys can actually rejuvenate themselves. The question is how careful the person wants to be and what kind of diet they will adopt. And the major things here are a low protein diet. Proteins are the major impact for the kidneys here. Those are the ones that the kidneys really have to deal with in terms of metabolism. And one of the things that causes quite a bit of uric acid buildup also in the blood, and creatinine and your values of blood urine nitrogen will go up. So there are a few things that can be done. That person will definitely need to see us and seek medical advice before they get anything done, particularly for a patient.
And where can they find you?
You can find me right now at the Ashman's building. We have a health food store there, and you can come in there and make an appointment, and that will be easier for you to actually
you hear that, right?
Chance to look.
Ashman's Village, do you have a number?
Yeah, so our number, that's my direct number actually, is the 615-6589 number.
15
6589.
615
6589.
6589. And what is your name, Dr.
Jermaine Carter.
Dr. Carter?
Yes,
That's correct.
Dr. Carter, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Carter. Actually, this the person I'm referring to don't live in Guyana, but visits often. So when a person visits, I'm going to try to make an appointment. As a matter of fact, I'll get information to them this evening, and in their next visit, if he can visit you.
All right, you got it right. Now the callers are coming in. The call is going to be coming in as quickly as possible now because you have raised up a whole ant's nest. Okay, so they're going to come in. Another call is on the line. Caller, you're on the air. Hello, good evening. Hello.
Hello, can I?
Yes, ma'am. You're on the air.
I would like to know how is brain tumor formed and how can you, what are some measures taken place to help prevent it?
All right. You got to give her a 60-second answer there.
That's not on our topic here, brain tumors, but there are several forms of brain tumors, astrocytomas being some of the ones that are more prevalent. There's also pineal gland tumors, some of which are definitely formed due to hormonal imbalances in women. Astrocytomas particularly are actually can be malignant also and can cause severe trouble. And brain tumors, of course, the major problem with them is pain because the skull does not have a lot of space for additional inflammation, so the pain is severe. I do know that with brain tumors in the U.S., we saw quite a few of that at the institute that I studied at, and we were able very well to treat some of those cases, and I know some of those people are, as far as I know, still alive today.
All right.
So I don't know if that answers your question. I know I didn't do justice to that simply because we don't have time for that, and that was on the topic.
Yeah. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the program.
Yes, good evening. I would like to ask doctor what it causes people to be craving, because for me, I crave for things, you know, even I eat food to satisfy, I still crave for things. I want to know what it causes craving.
Oh, well, I didn't define the number three symptoms for a diabetic.
What's craving?
Is what is defined in the medical literature as polyphagia. That one means that you're hungry a lot. Then there's polydipsia. That one means that you're thirsty. You drink a lot. And then there's polyuria, and you can figure that one out. That one means that you're going to pee a lot. And so if a person is finding that they're becoming excessively hungry and they need to eat something, maybe they don't feel as good, or their blood sugars can be falling and can give them quite a bit of an oozy feeling, then they would need to get a blood test done to make sure that they weren't going hypoglycemic and getting cravings like that, or also wanting to eat a lot. The top three things in terms of the medical literature to look for in a diabetic are the three that I call. That a person gets hungry a lot, they get thirsty a lot, and they often will urinate because, of course, they're becoming they're diuresing. They're actually letting out a lot of
So
food.
you're saying to her that she has what?
I'm not saying that you have diabetes. I wouldn't know unless you got tested. But I would say that if that's evident that you're finding that you have to eat quite a lot, or you're getting a lot of craving to have something to eat, then my first check would be on willpower. My second one would be on how much stress you're dealing with. And my third one would be get tested to make sure that you don't have diabetes. HbA1c test would be something that would help.
Diabetes test, but my sugar is always normal.
It's always normal.
Yes.
If it's always normal, we're gonna have to see what your metabolism is like, and maybe if you're burning off too much food quickly, or if you're eating nutrient-dense foods. I mean, if you eat foods that are not nutrient-dense, you'll get hungry very much faster and feel that you need much more food. And if you don't eat foods with enough fiber, you won't feel as full, and it won't keep you as long.
Okay,
All right.
all right, thank you.
All right, we got another caller coming in. Caller, you're on the air.
Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
calling because I have been diagnosed a diabetic for like 17 years, and I'm getting more and more difficulty to have control that blood sugar. I'm just calling to ask if I'm doing the right thing, because now in order to have my blood sugar control, what I'm doing is eating the 2 slices of bread for breakfast and eat apple for lunch, and two apples for lunch, and then use my vegetables and a piece of chicken with like 2 or 3 tablespoons of rice for dinner in order to have control. But somebody told me that I'm not doing the right thing, but that's the best way I'm getting control with the insulin that I'm using. I was diagnosed as diabetic at the age of 21 years old. I'm now 37, will be 38 years old now. I don't have any complications as yet. Just sometimes I feel a little pain on the right side of my chest, where in the heart region. But when I checked the last time, which was last week, the doctor said that he don't think I have a heart problem. They did the ECG and they did the heart enzymes test. So I'm just calling to find out what to do. Somebody said by eating the apple, I'm not doing the right thing.
All right,
Well,
he's going to answer you. Thanks.
Good question. First of all, you seem to have your meal amounts in reverse. First rule in terms of eating is that we want the most fuel in our vehicle at the start of the journey, not at the end of it. So breakfast really should be the largest meal that you have. Your body can deal with that meal better. But as you said, you're eating 2 slices of bread in the morning, 2 apples, and you're eating chicken, rice, and whatnot for dinner. Well, that there is a real disaster
that's
in
a
my
danger
mind.
zone, yeah.
And second of all, if you're really going to get diabetes under control, and I want to be very serious about this, what we're looking at is a diet-related disease by far. The number one thing to do is to get rid of animal proteins out of your diet.
That's
that
a problem
means,
for many people.
but
They have to do it if they want to live.
now, I'm
isn't
going
it?
to be serious
Yeah.
with you. The animal proteins have been shown to be something of a threat, not only to diabetes, but almost to every slew of disease. But if we're going to have, in a sense, control of diabetes, we cannot eat in that reverse order, first of all. We need to know what is good to eat, what you need to do, and then the diabetic can really,
Fade away.
in a sense, you can totally reverse diabetes. You don't have to live sticking yourself with insulin. You'll get checked. You'll know whether or not your body's producing enough insulin, and you'll be able to actually deal with the intake of those sugars. The general rule is that you have things in reverse. You need to check the order of that. You need to actually get to a good dietitian that have worked with diabetic patients, especially in reversing diabetes, and ask them what is good nutrition for you so that you don't meet with complications. There's no need to have a complication for diabetes and to put your family in expense, yourself in expense, and also go through grief or whatever else you can go through because of the ravages of diabetes.
All right. Good evening. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good evening, Doctor. Good evening,
Good.
Mr. Wicks.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted the doctor could make a comment on the effect of stress on
You're breaking up. You're breaking up, and I hear you clearly.
I wanted to know if the doctor could make a few comments on the effect of stress on diabetes, and also if he could talk about if there's any relationship between diabetes and having dementia and Alzheimer's and senility. How does that affect the brain? Diabetes affect those brain functions, and I have been a diabetic for a very long time, and sometimes the diabetes it goes away, but that's when I'm very, very strict and good, and then I stop. I don't have to use medication, and then I get bad, and it comes back. So, is there any permanent reversal? I mean, it can go away. I know it can.
Well, he just
because
said it,
I
huh?
would measure everything and my diet, and I'd exercise, and I'd be so good, and then I don't have to take medication anymore.
Uh-huh.
And that was gone. And then as soon as I start Coca-Cola not exercising. Oh, it comes back.
Yeah, well, there's no question about that. If you're gonna
I'll
use,
hang up and let the
Yeah,
doctor.
let him, yes, go ahead.
if you're gonna use brown drinks, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, coffee, caffeine. Caffeine, apart from being a diuretic, that means you pull water away from the blood and away from the body. Of course, the concentration of blood sugars will go up. That's just common sense. But apart from doing that, this is the stuff that they put into energy drinks. And what it does is that the liver stores something called glucogen. Glucogen is a form of glucose. As soon as a person takes in caffeine in any form, what will happen is that the liver dumps back glucogen into the blood. As soon as it hits the blood, it converts to glucose. That's the energy in an energy drink. That's the pop there for coffee or whatever the case may be. That gives you the kick. And then immediately what will happen is that your body recognizes the amount of sugar that's within the blood and ups the insulin to deal with that amount of sugar. And often the case, the person will go up and then the energy will go through the roof right down to the bottom of the house. And what will happen eventually, that person feels very weak, very limited, needs something else to give them another kick. So if you're going to use something like a brown drink, coffee or anything like this, and you have diabetes, you might as well, in a sense, you're doing something so bad as almost taking a gun and a bullet to the leg.
That's right.
What you need to do is to be more careful with your diet. What I want to explain here, one of the most substantial things, I'm having a few callers that call in, and they seem to ask, will it be permanent? All right, now I want to suggest that the way we've been taught to eat and to live, what constitutes good exercise, good habits for life, water drinking, good rest. If the diabetic doesn't get enough rest, his cortisone levels will go up. As his stress levels go up, his blood sugar, his glucose will go up.
Yeah.
Because we haven't learned the right concepts for nutrition, what constitutes good food and proper diet, that's actually a hindrance to us. We think that we need things that really are hurting us in a sense. And so a person like that really needs to consult with a dietitian, a nutrition, someone that is an expert and has dealt with reversing diabetes, and come to a place where they can get a proper compromise with what they should take, what they should eat, and what they should
Or they
not.
can check you out at us.
That's not a problem. You can check us out. You can definitely get an appointment. We're at the Ashman's Mall. We're also going to be at the 130
Yes,
years
anniversary at the Safari Exhibition Complex, March 19th to 25th.
Yes.
You can find him there, and he will check you out. Okay? Well, the calls are coming in,
Yes.
and we have 4 minutes.
We'll take what we can.
Caller, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, ma'am. You got to speak up a little bit for me. I'm not hearing you clearly.
Hi, sorry
Yes.
about that. I don't have a specific question on diabetes, but I heard you mention the event you have at the Safari Exhibition, and I'm trying to find
It's coming up.
where I could get tickets.
It's not, there's no ticket. It's free. You can go in free.
Oh, okay.
March 19th to the 25th.
The 19th to the 25th.
Yes.
And you have various doctors.
Yes, we got various doctors. Dr. Haynes is going to be there. He's a good pal, his buddy, his friend is going to be there. He's going to be there, and a whole set of other doctors going to be there from all across the place.
All right, thanks.
Okay? All right. Go.
You're welcome.
She's very direct and so on. So, caller, good evening.
Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
just a person calling back. You're saying that I can reverse my diabetes after 17 years by stop using insulin. That's what you, because we
She was
weren't
listening,
taught
eh?
to do that.
She was listening.
I hear you. I hear you. I just looked at a gentleman from Canada. He's actually of Pakistani descent. He's 73 years old. He uses a cane
He's going to answer out the air, right? Go ahead.
to walk with. And, his family, he had his medications. He was taking metformin. I also think he was taking one of the sulfonylurea drugs. I think it was dibutyride, maybe. I'm not quite certain exactly the one that he was taking, but one of those drugs. And I want to say that within a matter of 1 month, he was feeling so much more alive on the program that we had. Within a matter of 3 months, he was really said that he had a lot of energy. And I last spoke to his son that visited him in Canada here. And he told me, you know, Dad doesn't even need the cane any longer. He's so agile right now that he's walking and he's feeling fine. He's tested his blood sugars. And he's been diagnosed with diabetes for over 20 somewhat years. So to that caller that thinks that apparently if you've had this for a number of years, remember what you have done, you've probably damaged a lot of the organ systems. But what we're talking about is reversing a disease that is reversible. If we understand the mechanism of action at the cellular level when we talk about diabetes, and we know how that works in a sense, if we know how it works, then we can also know how to reverse that particular symptom or all of the particular symptoms that are directly involved in diabetes.
So, for all of you out there who are still looking at the program and want to know where you can find Dr. Carter, come to the exhibition complex, Sapphire Exhibition Complex on March 19th to the 25th. You're going to see him there with a whole set of other doctors in all the fields you can think about: dentistry, naturopath, medicine. All of them going to be there to answer to your questions where health is concerned. And not only diabetes, but a whole lot of issues persons are having. You can see Dr. Carter right there. So, Dr. Carter, we are 1 minute down to the time. Your closing comments to the viewing audience.
I want to take this chance to really get over the points that nutrition, as we understand it today, maybe is a little devalued. And in a sense, if we can understand what causes a disease of any kind, then we can know how to fix it. And this goes for almost everything that we do. If we can know the cause for something, in a great sense, we can work from cause to effect and we can reverse that particular disease if we can know what is causing it. And there's no question about that. We have been doing this for years from the United States all the way to Guyana, so we know that this works.
Doctor, let me thank you very much for being on the program tonight. I know that you have opened up
for
a
having
lot
me.
of windows and doors to people in terms of understanding diabetes. It is reversible.
We haven't even begun to
And we
answer the
haven't even
questions that are really here that might provoke some thought here.
We're going to come back and deal with that as another program. Trust me, we're going to have that. But if you missed it, you can check to our program on the air online on YouTube at Ghana Trusted Television on YouTube, and you're going to see the program all over again, and you can get the questions and the answers that you have missed. On behalf of all of us here at Channel 2, we want to wish you a great evening, and we're going to see you back again right here next Friday for another program of Safe TV 2 Presents. Bye-bye. God bless.
Bye-bye.